The sun hung low over the desert planet Iridian, painting the sky in deep shades of orange and red. The heat shimmered across the endless dunes, making the horizon seem to ripple like water. Jace Hawthorne rode his hoverbike slowly, scanning the landscape with eyes that had seen more deserts than most people had cities. He was a man used to being alone. A wanderer, a lone cowboy chasing salvage and scraps from the abandoned colonies of Iridian. Dust whipped around him as the wind rose suddenly, carrying the faint scent of ozone and scorched metal. He slowed the hoverbike, his instincts telling him something was off. That's when he noticed it, a small, flickering light down in a canyon, barely visible through the dust storm. Jace frowned and checked his scanner. A distress signal, small, weak, and fading fast. He gritted his teeth. Normally, he ignored signals that were too faint to track. Solitude suited him. But something about this one pulled at him, though he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the faint whisper of responsibility buried under years of survival. He changed course, heading toward the canyon. The wind tore at his coat as he descended, and the cliffs above cast long shadows across the cracked desert floor. Finally, at the bottom, he found her. She was struggling beside a half-buried vehicle, her scout ship, small, agile, and obviously damaged. Sparks flew as she tried to fix a broken panel, and her fingers were raw and bleeding. She looked up at him with dark, wary eyes. "Who are you?" she demanded, standing tall despite her obvious exhaustion. Her voice was firm, like the voice of someone who had learned to survive harsh worlds without help. "I'm Jace Hawthorne," he said simply, tipping his wide-brimmed hat back. "I saw your signal. Looks like you need some help." Her eyes narrowed. "I can manage." He shook his head slowly. "Not that. Those wires are fried. And you're bleeding. You're not going to manage this alone." She hesitated, then sighed. "Name's Nayeli. Apache scout. I was looking for a new colony site. Got caught in a storm. My ship's fried. And now, I guess I'm stranded." Jace nodded. "Looks like it." For a moment, they just stared at each other. The wind whistled around the canyon, carrying the dry scent of sand and rock. Then, with a subtle grunt, Jace set his hoverbike down and stepped closer to the ship. "Let's see what we can do." The next hour was tense. Nayeli moved with precision and determination, but Jace's knowledge of machines and scavenged tech was far superior. He handed her tools, adjusted circuits, and rewired broken connectors. Sparks flew, and once or twice, small fires flared before they were stamped out. "You're good," Nayeli said quietly, watching him. "I didn't think a lone cowboy would know his way around a scout ship." Jace grinned. "I've been around worse ships than this. Salvage is my life." She raised an eyebrow. "Salvage? Finding value where others see trash," he said simply. "It keeps me alive." They worked together, hands brushing occasionally as they passed tools or tightened screws. There was an unspoken rhythm between them, a quiet understanding forming. Despite his usual solitude, Jace found himself appreciating her presence. She wasn't afraid. She didn't complain. She adapted. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the canyon. Just as Jace connected the final circuit, a sudden roar echoed from the cliffs above. Both of them froze. From the shifting sands, massive sand scorpions emerged. Their crystalline shells glinted in the fading sunlight, legs moving with frightening speed. Their pincers snapped and clacked against the rocks. "Get back!" Jace shouted, pulling a blaster from his belt. Nayeli didn't run. She crouched, grabbing a metal rod from the ground. "I can handle them!" Jace didn't argue. Together, they fought, moving in tandem. Jace's blaster fired precise bolts, each shot hitting its mark. Nayeli swung her rod, striking the creature's softer underbelly. Dust, sparks, and sand flew as the battle raged for several minutes. Finally, the last sand scorpion collapsed, its crystalline armor shattering into glittering fragments. They both panted heavily, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. "You're Amazing, Nayeli said, brushing sand from her hair. You're not so bad yourself, Jace replied, allowing a small smile. They sat on the edge of the canyon, catching their breath. The storm had passed, leaving the sky a deep violet as night approached. The first stars of Iridian twinkled above, alien constellations, unfamiliar but beautiful. Why'd you help me? Nayeli asked softly, finally letting her guard down. Jace shrugged. Don't know. Guess I didn't want to leave someone to die in the desert. She studied him, eyes thoughtful. I'm used to relying on myself. But I'm glad you're here. He nodded, his expression unreadable. Glad I'm here too. Night fell quickly in the desert, and the temperature plummeted. Jace led Nayeli to a natural cave nearby. Inside, they built a small fire from scavenged materials. Sparks danced in the darkness, casting flickering shadows on their faces. You don't usually camp with strangers, do you? Nayeli asked, tossing a few small rocks into the fire. Jace shook his head. Not usually. But you're not just a stranger. You're something else. Strong. Determined. Doesn't quit. Nayeli smiled faintly. You don't usually give compliments either, do you? Rarely, he admitted. They talked late into the night. Nayeli shared stories of her people, the Apache colonists, and their struggle to find a safe world. Jace listened, fascinated. For someone so young, she carried wisdom and courage beyond her years. And Jace, in turn, spoke of the deserts, the abandoned colonies, and the things he'd seen. He didn't mention all the lonely nights. He didn't need to. Somehow, Nayeli understood anyway. As the fire crackled, a quiet trust began to form between them. Two souls, both hardened by survival, finding a moment of connection in the vast, unforgiving desert. When sleep finally overtook them, Jace kept his blaster nearby, and Nayeli slept lightly, ears twitching at every sound. In the alien night, they found a fragile peace, a brief sanctuary from a world that had never been kind. Tomorrow, they would face more challenges. The desert was dangerous, the raiders were out there somewhere, and the scout ship still needed repairs. But for now, they had survived. Together, and for Jace Hawthorne, that was enough. The next morning, the desert sun rose like a burning coin in the sky, painting the dunes in sharp gold and red. Jace woke first, his eyes scanning the horizon while Nayeli still slept beside the fire. The cold desert night had bitten deep, but the cave offered some protection. Jace stretched and checked the scout ship from the cave's entrance. Its hull was scratched, wires dangling, and some critical systems completely dead. Repairing it would not be easy, but he was used to tough challenges. Nayeli stirred, blinking against the sunlight filtering into the cave. "Morning," she said quietly, rubbing her eyes. Her voice carried the same calm determination that had impressed Jace yesterday. "Morning," Jace replied. "Sleep well?" "I always sleep lightly," she said. "The desert is not forgiving," Jace nodded. "True enough." He gestured toward the scout ship. "We have work to do if you want to get out of here." They set out across the canyon floor. Jace carried tools, spare circuits, and salvaged metal parts, while Nayeli studied the terrain, marking possible hazards and looking for hidden water sources. Though she was exhausted from yesterday's battle, she moved with careful precision, every step calculated. As they worked, they started talking. Nayeli explained the mission that had brought her to this planet. "My colony needs a new water source. Iridian is rich in minerals, but water is scarce. My job is to scout suitable locations for settlement." "I didn't expect to crash." Jace listened, intrigued. "You travel alone?" "Sometimes. Most of the time, yes," Nayeli said. "It is safer for the scout to move quickly and quietly. But being alone has risks. As I've learned." They reached the scout ship and assessed the damage. The energy core had been partially destroyed in the crash. The control panel was fried, and a small fire had burned through part of the hull. Replacing or repairing these parts would take more than basic salvage. I have some spare circuits in my hoverbike, Jace said. Might help get the core online. But the hull, that's tougher. Nayeli examined the wreck with a careful eye. The hull can be patched, but we'll need heat to fuse it properly. The desert sun might help, but it will take hours. Jace smiled faintly. You think like a soldier, don't you? Like a scout, Nayeli corrected. There's a difference. Hours passed as they worked in silence, occasionally sharing tools or brushing sand from each other. The sun climbed high, making the desert floor shimmer. Sweat ran down their faces, and dust coated every surface. But neither complained. The rhythm of work, the shared struggle, created a quiet understanding between them. During a brief rest, Jace pointed toward distant cliffs. See those shadows? Sand scorpions. You'll want to avoid that area until dark. Nayeli nodded, impressed. You remember from yesterday? Hard to forget, Jace replied. They have weak spots under their shells. Hit there if one comes close again. She smiled faintly. Good to know. You're full of surprises, Cowboy. Before they could relax further, a new danger appeared. A cloud of dust rose in the distance, moving faster than the wind. Jace's eyes narrowed. Raiders, the kind of people who scavenge, steal, and leave nothing but chaos behind. They're heading this way, Jace said, his voice calm but alert. Nayeli's hand went instinctively to her weapon. How many? Too many to fight openly, Jace said. We need to be smart. Hide, use the terrain, make them work for it. They quickly moved behind rock formations, their scout ship partially concealed by the canyon walls. Using binoculars, Nayeli counted at least 8 raider vehicles, all heavily armed. They'll strip this canyon if they find us, Nayeli said. We can't let that happen, Jace replied. We fight smart. We fight together. The raiders approached, unaware of the two figures hiding in the shadows. Jace and Nayeli set traps, using their combined knowledge of terrain and tactics. Sharp rocks were tied to hidden cords, and small fire blasts were rigged to act as alarms. When the first raider vehicle drove too close, it triggered one of the traps. Sparks flew, tires skidded, and confusion spread through their ranks. Nayeli moved with precision, striking the vehicle's weak points with her tools and making sure no one was hurt. Her goal was to delay, not destroy. Jace's sharpshooting disabled engines and weapons, hitting only critical components. The raiders were skilled, but Jace and Nayeli were smarter, faster, and more adaptable. Finally, after a tense chase through the canyon, the raiders gave up, deciding the risk was too high. Jace and Nayeli watched from their hiding spot as the dust cloud disappeared into the distance. That was close, Nayeli said, exhaling heavily. We made it, Jace replied, smiling faintly. Teamwork. Nayeli looked at him, admiration in her eyes. You saved me. Again. You didn't need saving, Jace said. You handled yourself. I just helped. They returned to the scout ship, hearts still racing but spirits lifted. The desert had tested them, but together they had survived. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, they set up a small camp near a shallow water source Jace had discovered. A trickle of water bubbled from a hidden spring, enough to drink and wash. While Nayeli prepared a simple meal from preserved rations, Jace cleaned his blaster and examined the scout ship's wiring. Tomorrow, we fix the core, Jace said. Then, the hull. And maybe, just maybe, we can get you home. Nayeli smiled. I didn't think I'd meet someone like you out here. Strong, calm, caring in your own way. Jace chuckled softly. You think I'm calm? You should see me in a real storm. She laughed lightly, a sound that reminded him of wind through the canyon. I like that about you, she said quietly. As night fell, the two of them sat by the small fire, watching the alien stars glitter above. They shared stories of their pasts. Nayeli spoke of her people, her family, and the colony's hopes for a better world. Jace shared tales of abandoned mining colonies, strange creatures, and the desert's harsh lessons. Though they had only known each other for a day, trust and respect were growing. They had faced death together, survived attacks, and shared vulnerabilities. Something deeper was forming a bond born from shared struggle and admiration. The night passed slowly, the desert quiet, except for distant howls and the soft hiss of shifting sand. When sleep finally claimed them, Jace kept his blaster close, and Nayeli slept lightly, alert to every sound. They both knew the next day would be harder. The scout ship still needed repairs, and Iridion was full of dangers. But for now, they had each other. And for the first time in a long time, Jace realized he wasn't completely alone. The morning air on Iridion was crisp and clear, a sharp contrast to the heat of the previous day. The twin suns had not yet fully risen, casting a soft golden glow over the dunes. Jace Hawthorne stretched, letting the chill bite at his arms, and glanced at Nayeli. She was already awake, moving with quiet efficiency, checking the small supplies they had salvaged from the scout ship. "We need a plan," she said, eyes scanning the horizon. "The power core is fragile, and even if we repair it, the hull will take hours to patch properly. We need a way to finish repairs faster." Jace nodded. "I've been thinking. There's an abandoned alien city a few miles from here. They might have materials we can use, but it won't be easy. That place isn't safe." Nayeli tilted her head, curiosity mingled with concern. "Aliens? Dead or alive?" "Long gone," Jace said. "But they left defenses behind. Automated drones, traps, who knows what else." "Sounds dangerous," Nayeli said, already deciding. "But we have little choice. If we want to fix your ship, and my scout ship." Before nightfall, they packed their minimal gear, carefully stashing rations, tools, and their weapons. Jace checked the hoverbike. It was fast enough to carry them both across the dunes. But they would have to move carefully. One wrong misstep, and they could be trapped in the ruins. The ride to the alien city was tense. The sand shifted under the hoverbike, and every shadow looked like a predator waiting to strike. Jace led the way, his eyes sharp, while Nayeli kept her hand on her weapon, scanning for threats. When they reached the outskirts, the city lay in ruins, half buried under centuries of sand. Towering structures leaned at impossible angles, and alien glyphs glowed faintly in the morning light. Jace and Nayeli dismounted, moving cautiously. "This place gives me the creeps," Nayeli whispered. "Stay close," Jace replied. "We need to be smart. Don't touch anything that looks like a trap." They entered a partially collapsed building, the floor littered with debris and shards of glowing metal. Jace knelt to examine a control panel, tapping into its functions with a small device from his pack. "Looks like we can get some energy conduits from here," he said. "They might power your scout ship temporarily while we fix the core." Nayeli nodded. "Good. Let's split tasks. You handle the energy conduits. I'll secure the perimeter." She moved like a shadow, checking every corner for hidden threats, while Jace worked on the ancient technology. Sparks flew occasionally as he rewired old circuits, careful not to trigger any alarms. Then, suddenly, a mechanical hum filled the air. The walls vibrated slightly. Automated defense drones, dormant for centuries, had activated. Their multi-jointed limbs glinted in the weak sunlight filtering through broken ceilings. Their eyes, bright with alien intelligence, scanned for intruders. "Drones," Jace muttered. "We need to move fast." Nayeli sprang into action, ducking behind debris and using her agility to evade the drones. She hurled a small metal rod at one, causing it to stumble, but not stop. Jace fired his blaster with precision, hitting weak points in the drone's joints. Sparks and smoke filled the air as the machines faltered. "Use the debris," Jace shouted. "We can trap them." Together, they lured the drones into narrow corridors, where they became entangled in rubble. Jace rewired a damaged console, sending a pulse that temporarily disabled the remaining drones. The hum of machinery faded, leaving the ruins eerily silent once again. Nayeli exhaled sharply, brushing dust from her hair. "That was close." Jace gave a small smile. "Good teamwork. Couldn't have done it alone." They continued through the ruins, carefully collecting energy conduits, metal reinforcements, and other useful materials. Along the way, they shared fragments of their pasts, finding comfort in each other's company. I grew up learning to survive, Nayeli said softly. Every day was a test. My people relied on scouts like me to find safe places. I was taught to be quick, silent, and strong. Jace listened, nodding. I've wandered deserts, abandoned colonies, and spaceports where no law exists. Surviving is an art. You adapt, you learn, and you keep going. Their shared experiences created a bond stronger than words. They didn't need to explain themselves. They understood the hardships and resilience each had carried for years. After several hours of work, Jace examined the energy conduits. This should be enough to jumpstart your ship temporarily. We can use it to move to a safer location and finish repairs properly. Nayeli looked at him, a faint smile on her face. You make it sound easy, Jace chuckled. Nothing on this planet is easy. But together, we stand a chance. As they prepared to leave, a deep rumble echoed through the ruins. More drones, larger and more aggressive than before, emerged from the shadows. Their metallic limbs clicked like hammers on stone, and their glowing eyes focused on the intruders. We can't outrun them, Nayeli shouted. Yes, we can outsmart them, Jace replied. Follow my lead. He led her through narrow corridors, using the conduits they had collected to set traps. Sparks flew, floors collapsed strategically, and drones were toppled by falling debris. The two moved as a single unit, Jace's tactical mind paired with Nayeli's agility and quick thinking. Finally, they reached the exit, breathing heavily but victorious. The alien city loomed behind them, silent once again. They had survived a near impossible challenge, relying on human ingenuity, courage, and cooperation. Outside, the desert sun was setting, casting long shadows across the dunes. Nayeli looked at Jace, admiration and gratitude shining in her eyes. I didn't think we'd make it, she said. You did great, Jace replied. Better than I expected. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the horizon. The desert was harsh, dangerous, and unforgiving, but they had conquered it together. As night fell, they set up camp near a small oasis hidden among the dunes. The water reflected the stars, and a gentle breeze eased the heat of the day. They shared a simple meal, eating in companionable silence. Nayeli spoke softly. I've never trusted anyone so quickly. But I feel safe with you. In use time, Jace glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I feel the same way. Don't tell anyone. I'm not used to this. She laughed lightly. Your secret's safe with me. The stars of Iridian glittered above as they worked together to patch minor damage to the scout ship, using the conduits from the alien ruins. Though the work was slow, their teamwork was flawless. Each movement was synchronized, every decision considered, and every challenge met with determination. By the time they finished for the night, the scout ship was partially operational. It wouldn't fly yet, but they had a clear path forward. As they settled down by the fire, Nayeli nudged Jace gently. You know, you're the first person I've ever called a partner in survival. Maybe more. Jace raised an eyebrow, his usual stoicism giving way to a small smile. More? Yes, Nayeli said softly. Someone I can trust. Someone who watches my back. Someone I respect. You've earned that place, Jace. For the first time in his life, Jace felt the weight of connection. He wasn't alone, and he didn't want to be. The desert had tested him, but it had also given him something rare: trust, partnership, and the quiet thrill of companionship. They fell asleep under the stars, the cool desert night wrapping them in a fragile sense of peace. Tomorrow, they would face new dangers, continue repairs, and perhaps move closer to their goal. But for now, they rested, knowing they had survived the alien city and each other's fears. And in that moment, Jace Hawthorne realized that survival was not just about fighting, it was about trust, partnership, and the courage to rely on another human being. The desert on Iridian was quiet in the early morning. the sand glowing faintly under the rising suns. Jace, Hawthorne, and Nayeli had spent the night patching the scout ship and preparing for the next stage of their journey. The ship was far from fully operational, but the alien conduits had restored partial power. Systems hummed softly, promising movement soon. Jace scanned the horizon, frowning. Dust swirled in the distance, forming shapes that didn't belong to nature. "Raiders," he muttered, "and more than yesterday." Nayeli's hand instinctively went to her weapon. "They found us." "How many this time?" "Too many to outrun," Jace replied, his jaw tight. "We're going to have to fight smart." They quickly moved to the scout ship, which had been partially concealed by dunes. Using the alien conduits, Jace powered critical system shields, limited thrusters, and defensive blasters. It wasn't enough for a full flight, but it was enough to defend themselves temporarily. "Good thinking," Nayeli said, watching him work. "But we'll need more than a half-powered ship to survive them," Jace nodded. "I have a plan. We use the terrain. They don't know the canyon like we do." The raiders appeared soon after, their vehicles kicking up dust like rolling thunder. 8 heavily armed hover trucks approached, engines roaring. They were relentless, and Jace could see greed and cruelty in the way they moved, hunting everything in their path. "Ready?" Jace asked. Nayeli nodded, gripping her weapon tightly. "Let's finish this." The battle began with careful strategy. Jace and Nayeli led the raiders toward a narrow canyon, where rocks and natural formations limited the vehicle's movement. Using the partial power of the scout ship, Jace fired precision blasts, disabling the lead vehicles and forcing the rest to slow. Nayeli moved like a shadow, ducking behind rocks, striking weak points on the vehicles, and throwing improvised devices to create explosions and smoke. Sand sprayed into the air, blinding the raiders and giving them opportunities to act. "Watch your left!" Jace shouted, as a raider vehicle attempted to flank them. Nayeli spun and aimed, hitting the vehicle's engine with perfect precision. The engine sputtered, flames licking the hull before dying down. They moved like a single unit, Jace's tactical mind guiding every step, Nayeli's agility complementing his strategy. It was more than survival. It was art. The raiders regrouped, trying to corner them near a ridge. Jace glanced at Nayeli. "We need a trap. Now." Using a combination of rocks, cables, and energy conduits, they rigged a makeshift trap in the narrow path ahead. Jace lured the raiders into position. Then Nayeli triggered it, causing rocks to tumble, vehicles to crash, and dust to fill the air. Several raiders were pinned, while the others tried to escape. Jace and Nayeli pressed their advantage, moving quickly and striking only where necessary. They did not seek unnecessary violence. Their goal was survival and defense, not revenge. Finally, after what felt like hours, the dust cleared. The raiders, defeated and demoralized, retreated into the distance. Jace and Nayeli stood in the canyon, breathing heavily, the adrenaline still pumping through their veins. "That was intense," Nayeli said, brushing sand from her hair. "You did great," Jace replied, his voice calm despite his racing heart. "We did great. Together." Nayeli looked at him, admiration shining in her eyes. "You really are something, Jace. I've never met anyone like you." "You're not so bad yourself," Jace said, letting a small smile appear for the first time that day. They returned to the scout ship, now safe to continue repairs without the constant threat of raiders. Using the remaining alien conduits, Jace worked to stabilize the ship's energy core, while Nayeli patched the hull with heat and precision. Each task required focus, skill, and patience. Together, they were unstoppable. As the ship hummed with renewed life, Nayeli glanced at Jace. "I didn't expect to call anyone my partner, but I guess I have." Jace paused, considering her words. "Partner?" "Yes," Nayeli said, a faint blush on her cheeks. "Someone I trust. Someone who watches my back. Someone I respect. You've earned that place." Jace's heart, long hardened by solitude and survival, felt something new. Connection. belonging, and trust. Then I'll keep that title, he said softly. If you want me to. Nayeli smiled. I do. More than anything. They spent the rest of the day securing the ship, making sure every system was ready for flight. The desert sun was high overhead, but neither felt its heat as much. Their minds were focused on each other, on survival, and on the hope of reaching a safe place for Nayeli's people. As evening approached, they climbed a small ridge to get a better view of the surrounding desert. The horizon stretched endlessly, golden dunes fading into violet shadows. We made it this far, Jace said, his voice quiet. And we'll make it further. Together. Nayeli nodded, resting her hand on his shoulder. Together. Night fell, and the stars of Iridian shone brightly. For the first time in a long while, Jace felt peace. The desert was still dangerous. The raiders still out there. But for now, they had survived. And more importantly, they had each other. They shared a simple meal by a small fire, laughter mingling with the crackle of flames. They spoke of hopes, fears, and dreams. Nayeli spoke of her colony, the life she wished to build for her people. And Jace shared tales of deserts, abandoned settlements, and distant worlds he had seen. As the fire died down, Jace looked at Nayeli. You know, you're the first person I've ever felt like I could really trust. Maybe even more, Nayeli smiled softly. I feel the same way. Survival brought us together. But something more keeps us here. The desert night was silent around them. The only sounds the soft whisper of the wind over dunes and the gentle hum of the partially repaired scout ship. For now, they rested, knowing they had faced death, danger, and adversity, and emerged stronger together. Tomorrow, they would take to the skies, leaving the desert and raiders behind. But tonight, they simply existed in the rare peace they had earned, the bond between them stronger than any danger that Iridian could throw their way. Jace Hawthorne, the solitary cowboy, no longer felt alone. Nayeli, the resilient Apache scout, had become his partner in life, trust, and survival. And together, they were unstoppable. As they drifted into sleep under the alien stars, the desert around them seemed less hostile, almost protective. For the first time, both of them knew that no matter what the universe threw at them, they could face it together, and that was worth more than all the gold, salvage, or victories in the world. The first light of Iridian's twin suns spilled across the desert, turning the dunes a soft shade of gold. Jace Hawthorne stood on the ridge above their camp, scanning the horizon. The battle with the raiders had left scars on the landscape, but more importantly, it had taught him the value of partnership, trust, and hope. Nayeli emerged from the scout ship, her movements precise and careful. The hull, patched and reinforced, gleamed faintly under the morning light. Her eyes met Jace's, and she smiled, a mixture of determination and relief. We're ready, she said. Jace nodded. Ready to leave this desert behind, ready to start fresh. The scout ship hummed as it powered up. The alien conduits had fully integrated with its systems, making it more stable than it had been before the crash. Jace tested the thrusters carefully, ensuring that the limited shields and engines could support short flight. Nayeli monitored the controls, adjusting and checking every readout. This is it, she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of excitement. The colony will be waiting for us. And maybe a new world, too. Jace felt a strange emotion well up in his chest, pride, relief, and something deeper. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was moving forward with someone he trusted, someone he cared about. As they climbed into the cockpit, Jace glanced at Nayeli. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad I found you out here in the desert. Nayeli's eyes softened. And I'm glad you did, Jace. You've saved me more times than I can count. And you've earned my trust. You've earned everything. He swallowed hard. Everything? Yes, she said, her voice firm but gentle. A partner. A friend. Someone to call my husband. Jace blinked. For a moment, words failed him. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. Then, I accept, he said, letting the rare warmth show in his eyes. I'll be your husband, your partner, for as long as you want me to be. Nayeli laughed softly, a sound like wind over sand, and reached out to squeeze his hand. The gesture was simple, but it carried all the weight of trust, companionship, and a promise of the future. With the final pre-flight checks complete, Jace powered the thrusters. The scout ship shuddered slightly as the engines roared to life, lifting off the sand. Dust and sand swirled beneath them as the ship gained altitude. They rose above the canyon, leaving the dangers of the desert behind. Look at that, Nayeli whispered, pointing at the horizon. A new world is waiting for us. Jace followed her gaze. The dunes stretched endlessly, but beyond them, the distant mountains and valleys held the promise of water, life, and safety. The desert had been harsh, unforgiving, and deadly, but it had also brought them together. As they flew, they began to plan. The colony needed water-rich land, and with their combined knowledge, they could find the perfect location. Jace suggested routes that avoided raider activity, while Nayeli analyzed geological patterns and possible water sources. Their skills complemented each other perfectly. Hours passed as they navigated the skies. Occasionally, they passed small sandstorms, remnants of the desert's fury. But the scout ship, with its repaired systems, handled them easily. Jace and Nayeli worked seamlessly together, their teamwork a testament to the bond forged in the harshest conditions. Eventually, they reached the outskirts of a fertile valley. Rivers sparkled under the twin suns, and patches of green vegetation promised life. Nayeli's eyes widened. This is perfect. My colony could thrive here. Jace smiled. Looks like our journey was worth it. They landed the scout ship carefully near the river, testing the stability of the landing site. The engines powered down, leaving only the soft hum of the remaining systems. Silence fell over the valley, a calm contrast to the desert chaos they had left behind. Nayeli stepped out first, scanning the area with a practiced eye. No threats, she said, relief evident in her voice. We're safe. For now. Jace followed, looking around. The valley was beautiful, full of promise. He felt a rare sense of peace, knowing they had survived the desert, defeated the raiders, and reached a place where life could begin anew. They walked together along the riverbank, discussing plans for the colony. Nayeli spoke of building shelters, securing water, and teaching the younger scouts. Jace offered his knowledge of salvage and technology, helping to design systems for energy, defense, and communication. This could work, Jace said, watching her excitement. We could really build something here. Nayeli nodded. We could, and we will. Together. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of red and purple, they found a quiet spot by the river. Sitting side by side, they watched the reflection of the twin suns in the water. I can't believe we made it, Nayeli said softly. You did, Jace replied. I just helped a little. You survived. You fought. You never gave up. That's why we're here. She leaned her head against his shoulder, a simple gesture full of trust and comfort. I couldn't have done it without you either. You saved me more than once. You've been my rock, Jace. My partner. My husband. He placed a hand over hers. And you've been my anchor, Nayeli. My reason to keep going. For the first time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Night fell, and the stars of Iridian shone like diamonds scattered across black velvet. The desert behind them was no longer a place of fear and solitude. The valley before them was a canvas for a new life, a life they would build together. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly to prepare the valley for the colony. Structures were built, water systems secured, and defenses planned. Jace's skills with machinery and salvage proved invaluable, while Nayeli's knowledge of the land and survival ensured that every decision was practical and safe. Through it all, their bond deepened. They shared laughter, worries, and dreams. They argued occasionally, but always with respect and understanding. They celebrated small victories, from successful water filtration systems to the safe planting of crops. One evening, as the sun set, painting the valley in fiery orange and gold, Nayeli turned to Jace. "Do you ever think about the desert?" "All the time," he admitted. "But I don't miss it. Not like this. Not with you here." "I feel the same," she said. "The desert tested us, but it gave us this, each other." Jace smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then, I guess we survived for a reason. Not just to live, but to find each other." Nayeli nodded, her eyes shining. "And now, we begin." As night fully settled over the valley, Jace and Nayeli stood hand in hand, looking at the stars. They had survived storms, raiders, and alien ruins. They had learned to trust, to fight, and to rely on each other. And now, on this new world, they had the chance to build something lasting not just for themselves, but for the colony that would soon follow. The desert cowboy and the Apache scout had started as strangers, bound by circumstance and survival. Now, they were partners, lovers, and equals, ready to face any challenge together. And as the twin suns rose once more, casting light on the fertile valley, a new chapter began, a story of hope, courage, and the unbreakable bond between two humans who refused to be defeated. Jace Hawthorne looked at Nayeli, the woman who had called him her husband, and felt a sense of purpose he had never known. The desert had shaped him, the dangers had tested him, but love and trust had given him strength. Together, they would face the future, no matter what it held. The scout ship, now fully operational, gleamed in the moonlight. It was a symbol of survival, ingenuity, and partnership. With it, they would explore new lands, discover new challenges, and continue their journey side by side. And in the quiet of the valley, with stars above and water flowing nearby, Jace and Nayeli knew one thing for certain: humanity, courage, and the bond between two people could overcome any obstacle. They had survived the desert, and together, they would thrive. This was their new beginning.